Hi guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to loop through a folder and open all the Excel files and do something with them. Before we get into that, go to excelvbasequel.com and there's about 20 hours of video that you could watch on Excel VBA. And also send me questions there and enter your email so that you'll be on the email list when a new free video goes up. You can be notified. Okay, let's get started. So in this video I have this folder on my desktop, and if I open it up, it has some workbooks in it, and there's 4 of them, and 3 of them are dates. The name of the workbook is a date, so 6/1/2011, 6/2/2011, 6/3/2011. If I open these up, you'll just see in here each one of them has a date, 6/1, and an amount. If I close 6/1 and I open up 6/2, 6/2 workbook has a date and an amount. And notice that they're all in the same place, but it doesn't need to be. But in this case, for simplicity, I'm just going to show you how to open up each one of these 3 workbooks, 6/1, 6/2, and 6/3, and extract the date and the amount from each of those workbooks, and put those extracted values in this other workbook called Open All Excel Files in a Folder. So this is a workbook that is blank here with the date and amount. But when we're done with the macro, it's going to have the 3 dates here and the 3 amounts here. So again, what we're doing is inside this folder, we're going to loop through and open this workbook and get that date and get that amount, and then keep going, open this workbook and get that date, that amount, and then get this workbook, open that workbook 6/3 and get that date and get that amount. That's all going to be triggered by a macro in this workbook, open all Excel files in a folder. So the macro is going to be contained in here, and the data we extract is going to be contained in here. So let's get started. What we need to do is get to the editor. So go to Developer, Macros, Developer, Visual Basic, and let's bring up the Project Explorer. I'm going to insert a module. Actually, for now, I don't need this. And I'm just going to call this sub loop through files in folder. Okay, so now we have our subroutine, and we're going to need a couple things. We're going to need an object that is a Microsoft Excel workbook. So to do that, I declare one here called dim main WB as workbook, and then I want another workbook object, so I'm going to do dim WB as workbook, and then I'm just going to declare an integer here, dim I as integer. Okay, so now I have a couple variables. Again, this main WB is declared as a workbook, and this is declared as a workbook, this WB variable. So now I can assign things to these variables, and to do that, whenever you're working with a type that is an object, so sometimes types are integers or floats, those aren't objects, but in this case this is an object. So to assign something to an object, you have to use set main WB is equal to, and I'm just going to do this workbook. Now what is this doing? This is setting this workbook object to this workbook. What is this workbook? Well, the workbook is open all Excel files in a folder. So basically it says create a workbook variable and set it to the current workbook. That's what this workbook is. Now I want to activate this workbook, so I'm going to do main wb.activate. Oops. And then I want to clear, if there's any data here, I want to clear it out. So what I'm going to do is go like this, sheets, sheet 1, dot select, then I'm going to go range. So I just want to clear any data that would be in here. range A2 to B, I'll put 500 dot clear contents. Okay, so now up to this point, I'm just working in this workbook, and I would clear any contents here going down to 500. That's what these lines here, it clears this range, A2 to B500. That's what this highlighted range would go down to. Now we need to get into dealing with the folder, and how are we going to loop through this folder and look at these files. So to do that, we're going to need some file system objects, and to do that, you can do something like this. Just write set file system obj is equal to create object, and then create object parentheses. Inside parentheses, you want to put scripting dot file system object. So this creates an object. This function creates an object that is in this file system, that is in this scripting library, and it creates a file system object within that library. You don't need to know the details really. All you need to know is this is creating an object that enables you to deal with the directory system, meaning the folders and the files within those folders. So that's what this line does. Next, before we move on, this deals with the file system. So I refer to it as a directory, but you could call it a file system. Next, we want a folder object. So we do set folder obj is equal to file system obj.get folder, and inside parentheses, I want to put the path of my folder. And what's the path of my folder? Let me go back out here. I'm going to go to properties. I get the path of my folder. And what I want to put in here is the path of the folder. And it's a very long path. It's open all Excel files in a folder. So this, okay, two things here. These are pretty important lines in this macro. This creates a file system object that enables us to access the file system or the directory, meaning where all the files are stored. This line here enables us to create a folder object, and the folder object is created by using this file system object right here. Notice I have this file system object I created. I use that, and I use the get folder method, and I pass in a path, and the path here is the path. So this is the path to the folder. So you need a folder path, that's what this is, and that'll give you a folder object. So now I have a folder object. And now what you can do is loop through the folder. So that's pretty easy. You just use a for each loop, and you go, you just say for each file obj in folder obj dot files next file obj. So this is it. I mean, this is really all we need in our code. In order for you to loop through a folder and open up every file, this is the main structure you need. You need a file system object by using the create object scripting.filesystem. You need a folder object by passing in the path to the folder. And you need a for loop that will loop through. Once you have your folder object, there is a collection of files associated with that folder. And that's what this is doing here. It's saying for each file object in folder object.files, this is basically a collection. Right here, what I have highlighted is a collection of files. And you use this for each loop to loop through that collection of files. So every time we go through this loop, we're going to move on to a next, from one file to the next file. And we could do things with that file. We can access things with that file. So here I'll just write a comment, loop through the files. Okay. So now I want to open up all the Excel workbooks in the folder. To do that, I have to somehow know that they're Excel workbooks versus, say, a Word document or a PDF document. Because if there are other documents in here that are not Excel, I don't want to open them because that would cause problems. It would open up. What if there were a million PDF documents in here? I don't want to open up all those PDFs. I only want things that are Excel documents, and I could find out if they're Excel documents by doing something like this. Doing if file system object dot get extension name. So this is a function, file system object dot get extension name. Get extension name is a function that if you pass in a path, it will tell you what the extension is. So in our case, we only want extensions that are SLSX or XLSM, because maybe we want to open, workbooks that have macros in them or workbooks that don't. So what we're doing here is just saying, we want to find out if the workbook if the file is an Excel file. So we could find that out by looking at the extension, meaning the .xlsm, xlsx, or .txt. We could find out that extension by using this getExtension method. And if we pass in the path of the file object that we're on, and that path is going to be gotten from this file object, every time through the loop, this file object path is going to change because the name of the file is going to change. But we're going to check, is the extension SLSX or XLSM. We also want to put something in here that says, notice that in our folder, the file that we want to store all this data in, we want to loop through all these files and grab these dates and amounts. But notice we have an Excel workbook in here where we want to call all this action and trigger it. So we want to make sure that we don't want to do anything with that file. So I'm going to put another criteria in this if statement that says it's going to say file object dot name does not equal the name of this workbook right here, because I don't want to do anything with this workbook. So I'm going to do file object dot name. It doesn't equal this dot xlsm. And also, if you're aware of this, there are times when if this is open, you have to account for that because Excel creates hidden files. So to account for that, I'm just going to do this. Right here, I do the name of this file, open all Excel files in a folder. So I don't want to do anything with that, so I do file object doesn't equal that. But then if it's open, it's going to be hidden, and it changes the name a little bit by adding this to it, this tilde and a $sign. So you also have to account for that. Um, and then I also say, and the file system extension has to be XLSM or XLSX. Okay, so now we know we're going to be dealing with Excel files, and we're never going to deal with this Excel file that we're currently in. We're never going to have to deal with that. So now we could start our code that is going to extract this data. So we're going to do something like this. First, we're going to do application.displayAlerts is equal to false. And then we want to do, what does this line do? Display alerts equal to false. Well, I don't want any message boxes popping up when I go to save any workbooks. So I set the display alerts equal to false, and that will prevent any message box from popping up when I want to save a workbook. So that's why I did this line. Next, I want to open a workbook. So I do set WB, and this WB is a workbook object. Remember, we declared it up here. So I do set WB is equal to file obj dot path, but I have to use the open command. I do workbooks dot open. So right here, I'm going to open a workbook. And which workbook am I going to open? I'm going to open whatever file object I'm on here. I'm going to extract the path, and if you pass a path as a parameter into this open function, it'll open the workbook. Okay. And now we're going to copy the results from the just opened workbook. So to do that, we do WB dot worksheets. I'm just going to do sheet 1 dot select, and so if we run this right now, I'm going to run this up to here. Let's see. So if I run this, you'll notice there's this workbook open, and this workbook was opened right here during this set WB. And I could test that by putting a watch on this WB object, and I could show you that WB, let's see if I could find the name. Yeah, so you could see this is, I treat into the WB object, and here's the full name. It's 6.1.2011.xlsx, and that is what is here. That is what is open here. So now when we have this open, we want to extract this data. In order to do that, I'm just going to stop this now. So you see that the code is working. I'm going to clear this watch out. And what I'm going to do is declare a variable called last cell is going to be equal to range A2 to B500. I'm going to use range A2 to B500 special cells. Then I'm going to do XL cell type last cell dot address. And then what I'm going to do is range A2 so and then I'll do selection.copy. So what is this doing here? XL type last cell address and the special cells. Well, what this does, if I run this again, and you could see if I step through last cell, if I put a watch on this, Last cell is equal to B2. And that's because in this workbook that is open, B2 is the, if you look at the entire range of, if you look at this entire range of A2 to B500, and you look at what is the last cell, well, here's A2 to B500. Imagine A2 to B500 goes all the way down. What is the last cell? Excel can give you that address by doing this: special cells Excel last cell type dot address. It'll return B2 right here. So now I have this range right here, and if I select it right there, you will see that it is selected here. So there, I selected this range. Now, why did I do it like this? Why did I use special cells Excel last type? Because what if you have data that has more dates and more amounts, and let's say you go down to the 5th row? Well, this code up here will account for that. It's dynamic enough to expand and contract this range. That's why I use this special cells Excel last type dot address. I put that in a variable here so that this range A2 to what, to last cell, this range is the dynamic range right here, A2 to last cell. That range goes from A2 to some cell in column B. It's right now it's B2, but if you had more data, it would be B3 or B4 or B5, and it would go up and down. Okay, so now we were able to get this far, and we can copy the data. Now all we need to do is go to the main workbook and paste data. So the main workbook again is this workbook. What I set up here, main workbook, is this workbook, and that is open all Excel files. So now we can go back to that workbook. So notice up here in this loop, we're opening up these workbooks. At the first time we open it, it's going to be 6/1/2011, and then we're going to have to go back to this workbook, and we're going to have to pay. We're going to open this up, copy something, and then go back here and paste it, and then we're going to have to go to this workbook and go back here and then paste that data, and go to this workbook and copy data, and then go here. So each time we're going to a workbook and coming back always to this main workbook. That's why I declared a workbook called main workbook up here equal to this workbook right here. Okay, so let's go back to the code here, and now we can do this: main wb.activate. So this is an important step, is using this activate method that will go from one workbook to another. Just as I'm going from this workbook 6/1/2011, and now I'm clicking over to this workbook, I'm sort of activating those workbooks. That's exactly what this code does. It takes your activation from this workbook and puts it in this workbook so that you can maneuver around in between workbooks. Once I'm in this workbook, I want to do this. I want to do sheets, sheet 1 dot select, and then I do this. If I want to paste my data always starting in this spot, A2. But what if it's blank? Then I want to put it in A2. But what if it's not? Then I want to somehow find the last cell. So that's what I'm going to do here in this if statement. I'm going to do if range A2 dot value is equal to blank. Then I'm going to do something else and if. So if it is blank, then I just do range A2 dot select. If it's not blank, then I'm going to do this. I'm going to find me the first row in column 1 that's blank, and I do that by doing range A1 dot end XL down dot offset 1 row 0 columns dot select. So what this does is it says if range A2 is blank, then select this cell and paste, and then I'm going to paste data. I didn't write the paste data. Let me write that code real quick here. All you got to do to paste the data is do this, active sheet dot paste. So I'm going to select a range and I'm going to paste data. And which range am I going to select? Well, if A2 is blank, I'm going to select A2 and paste the data right here. If A2 is not blank, I'm going to start in A1 and go down until this right here will go down to the end of the column, meaning the last cell that there's a value, and it'll offset one more. So if there was data up to here, up to A4, let's say there was data up to here, what this does is it goes down A1 and it'll stop right here at A4. But then because I use this offset 1 comma 0, it offsets this value A4, it offsets it one row A5 and 0 columns, so it's going to stay in A5, and it would then paste the data there. So that's what that does. And then all we want to do is close the workbook that we had open. So we do wb.activate, wb.save, wb.close. And then we do main wb.activate. So right here, we are once again going back to this 6.1 workbook. We're activating it, we're saving it, and we're closing it. So let me summarize this again, all the actions. First thing we do is we loop through every file and we say, is it an Excel file? And it is. This one is. So we open it, we copy this data, and then we activate this workbook and we paste it in that range that we just saw. And then we go back to the workbook where we came from. We activate it again, we save it, we close it, and then we activate this workbook again. So what we always do is we activate this, copy something, activate this, paste it in there, and then go back and activate this and save it and close it. And then we go back to here. And then next time through the loop, because we're going to be right here, this next statement takes us to the next file in the loop. We're going to be on this file, 6.2. And we activate it, we copy this data, and then we activate the main workbook, we paste it, and we go back and we activate that workbook, and we save it and close it, and so on and so forth. And we're going to do the same thing for 6.3, activate it, copy the data, then activate the main workbook, paste it in, and activate this again and save it and close it. And then when we get to this workbook, it's going to fall into this statement here, and we're not going to do anything. It's just going to, the if statement here is going to basically skip over this workbook. So we're only going to deal with this, this, and this. We're going to loop through all four of them, but you could see in the loop here, when we get to the file object name being this open all Excel files in a folder, we just put an if statement there to loop over it by saying the file object name cannot equal that. So then we loop over it. Okay, so let me run this and show you what we got. So here we have our blank workbook. This is our workbook that is called Open All Excel Files in a Folder. This is where we want to populate all the data. In order to do that, if I just click play, you could see here all the data was just populated right here. There's all my data. And what do I have open? Well, this one I had open from before, so let me close this one. Let me run that again, and I'll show you. If I run it, it just uh, let me step through this because it's interesting. Um, okay. I actually have clear comments up here, so let me go back here. Oh man. So this should not be clear comments. It should be dot clear contents instead of comments. So now if I run it, um, I could actually take this off. I'm pretty confident it's going to clear. What's going to happen is all this data is going to clear out, and we're just going to be left with the 3 dates and amounts that we want. So there they are. It stopped running, and all this data, it came from the data that is in these 3 workbooks. Okay, and in terms of what workbooks do we have open, you'll notice we only have one workbook open, and that's because each time through the loop we are going and we are closing it. After we extract the data, we activate the workbook we got it from, and we save it and close it. So at the end of this macro, you'll see if I run it again, there it cleared it. Well, it cleared it out. You didn't see that, but it did clear it out, and then it just repopulated them. So let me bring this up here. Let me run this again. Now watch this area down here. It'll clear it out, and then you'll see it change. So I'm going to click run. You could see that it's changing. Here we go. Okay, watch it now. It cleared it out. It put the one in, the second one, the third one. There you go. So that's what this macro does. It opens up all the Excel workbooks in here, except for the one that you're using to store all this data you're pulling in, and it'll grab a whole bunch of information. Now, why is this powerful? Well, it's powerful because what if you had 100 and what if you, let's say you had 1,000 Excel files, all of them contain data on them, and you need to somehow extract it. Well, this will do it for you. You just take this code and you change the path to your folder. You could change the sheet name here. You could change what range you want to copy here, and this will basically do it for you. It'll give you the structure to do it. So basically, when you're working with the data that you want to extract, this dynamic range is pretty important. But you could customize that however you want. So let me summarize the main points of this workbook. You need to create a file system object. By doing this, create object system file system object here. You need to then create a folder object by doing this line. File system object dot get folder, pass in the path of your folder. Okay, pass in the path of your folder to the file, and that will create a folder object using this get folder function. And then you do a for each loop for each file object in folder object.files. So you're looping through the collection of files with a for each loop. And then the rest of it is pretty straightforward. It's saying, how do I want to deal with every file? Well, I want to copy this range, I want to paste it here, and then I want to save and close that workbook. So that's what that does. One extra thing is, what if you wanted to close this file after you did all that? So to do that, outside the loop here, just do this, application.quit. And what this will do is, after it runs the macro, it's just going to close itself. So I'm going to, let me go down here. as well as activation quit or application quit, you want to put main wb.save. So this will save, it will save this main file and then it'll close it. So let's run this now and you'll see that it's going to clear this out, put the data in, and then close the instance of Excel. So let's run it. There it's populating the data and then it closed. So that's really fast, and if you open it up, there's my data. So that's all I wanted to show for this video. If you have any questions, once again, go to excelvbasql.com here, and I will answer questions. I will post all this code that you see here. Most importantly, I will post all this code and all the workbooks in this folder, so that basically you can download it and you could just step through it line by line and get real familiar with how this thing is working. Until next video, I will talk to you soon. Remember to send me questions. Thanks. Bye.